people don't agree on many things anymore. Cannabis is one of the few things that they do. So I feel like cannabis is like the secret scalpel that cuts through all the divisions, race, classes, etc.
Mr. Vladimir Bautista. Vlad is a cannabis entrepreneur, New York City native. He founded the company Happy Munkey, which is a cannabis lifestyle brand, which he's now looking to expand.
If you ever seen Bronx Tale, I grew up in the Dominican version of it. Like, what you mean? I'm like, well, my area was like Walmart or BJ's for cocaine and heroin, like for the whole East Coast. And then when the whole cannabis thing, hey, I started consuming it at a young age, like 12, 13 years old, because I didn't know it at the moment. That area was notorious for cocaine and other drugs, stuff like that. But the good weed, that wasn't the area at the time, especially in the 90s. We had to go to Washington Heights and we had to go to Dykeman. At 16 years old, the entrepreneurial brain kicked in, Sean. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna buy an ounce. And if it doesn't sell, I'll smoke it. This could be my thing.
You got Coke, the margins are great, but you saw something that was less risky, less margin, sure, but less attention grabbing. Do you end up getting in trouble for this, or how does your hustling career kind of develop after that?
So I got arrested 22 different times for cannabis during this process of running that operation.
We're locking people up for having marijuana. 9 times out of 10, they really let you out the side door. The officer didn't want to make the arrest. The guy smoking didn't want to get arrested. So it was just like a broken system.
They were targeting our community to make a quota.
Or an arresting officer in one of our neighborhoods is going to treat us differently. So 2017, we got legal marijuana in the form of medical.
I'm gonna give you the reason that cannabis got legalized, and it's not what you would think.
Welcome to another episode of the Real Mentors Podcast. Real, as always, stands for Real Examples Altering Lives. I'm your host, Sean Martin, and today we have a special guest, Mr. Vladimir Bautista. Vlad is a cannabis entrepreneur, New York City native. He founded the company Happy Munkey, which is a cannabis lifestyle brand, which he's now looking to expand, hopefully further than New York City limits, but I know you're currently stretching to a couple of the boroughs in New York City. Welcome to the show today, Vlad. How are you, brother?
Thank you for having me, Sean. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here. You know, I always see all the amazing people that you interview. I'm a fan of the podcast and see like how through your podcast you're educating and inspiring our people. I
appreciate you, my brother. Let's see what we can do to make some dents today, because you're Dominican-American born. We were joking before we got on that you were born in, what was it? What's it now labeled?
It's now labeled Hamilton Heights, but it's really Sugar Hill, Harlem.
Yeah, Sugar Hill didn't have that ring like Hamilton Heights. I literally doing the research. I'm like, where the fuck is Hamilton Heights? And I'm like, Sugar Hill right below Washington Heights, but I guess it sounds fancy when you put Heights in the title.
You know, once the folks move in, you know, they gotta always, switch it up a little bit, right? Like right now we're in Sobro.
Yeah, exactly. They tried doing the piano district here. That fell on his face. Now it's Sobro. And we talked about that because it's wild to see how a neighborhood can change in 15 years. I was telling you how I used to go to parole and I used to report like a couple blocks away, and the first buildings were just going up. So to see all the high rises now is just like fucking unbelievable. So that's a testament to progress. But let's talk about yours, because you know your mission is also rooted in advocacy. Yes. It's rooted in empowerment, wrongful, imprisonment. Tell us a little bit about your story, how you grew up, and then we'll get into the business aspect and add some value to the listeners.
Well, similar to a lot of us that grew up in the 80s and the 90s, Sean, single mother. Both my parents are immigrants from the Dominican Republic, but separated at an early age. So my mother raised me on 139th and Broadway, coupons, welfare, however she could get by. I have an older sister and a younger brother. And, at the time, I don't got to tell you, I always tell people, and I know it's going to ring a bell to you, Sean, I tell people, like, if you ever seen Bronx Tale, I grew up in the Dominican version of it. Like, what you mean? I'm like, well, my area was like Walmart or BJ's for cocaine and heroin, like for the whole East Coast.
Yeah.
And, I didn't know at the time, so I started off by like going to do errands, going to the store, going to the cleaners, and make $800,000 a week for doing that, because the drug dealers, they couldn't leave the block, so they would have me do this type of stuff. and I graduated to being a translator because a lot of them were Dominicans off the boat. They couldn't speak English, and then I was a translator. And then when the whole cannabis thing hit, I started consuming it at a young age, like 12, 13 years old, because I didn't know it at the moment, but helped deal with, all the madness going on, the violence. You just don't know because you just think it's normal. That's the way you're growing up, so you get out of that area. And then the big change came, Sean, when so they, that area was notorious, like I said, for cocaine and other drugs, stuff like that. But the good weed, that wasn't the area at the time, especially in the 90s. We had to go to Washington Heights and we had to go to Dykeman. So we always had to travel up there to go get the good weed back and forth. And at 16 years old, the entrepreneurial brain kicked in, Sean. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to buy an ounce. And if it doesn't sell, I'll smoke it. This could be my thing because nobody cares about it down there. It's like beneath them. And I never looked back. And I believe that because of that moment, Sean, I'm here with you today because I believe that deterred me from going in other directions and ending up like 95% of the people that were out there dead or in jail.
Yeah, I got goosebumps because it's wild how, some of my listeners who maybe didn't grow up rough or didn't grow up in a city or didn't grow up, in poverty, they're like, oh, well, you're selling drugs at like 16. It's like, yeah, but selling weed didn't really count where we came from. So it's funny that you shed the perspective of you got coke, the margins are great, you can cut it, and you can, do all kinds of magic with cocaine. So that's why they saw the most value in it. But you saw something that was less risky, less margin, sure, but less attention grabbing, and it turns out a longer term play anyway. So do you end up getting in trouble for this, or how does your hustling career kind of develop after that?
So from that ounce, it turned into 4 ounces, 8 ounces, a pound, 1 employee, 2 employee. It turned into an empire that was running from 12 in the afternoon to 5 in the morning, 7 days a week, 365 days. So it became like a thing because I was kind of like one of the first ones to bring that to Sugar Hill because, like I said, nobody cared about it. That's why it was like an untapped lane because they were making so much money selling hundreds of kilos, all the stuff they were doing. That was like beneath them, which was the other reason, because you know how it was back then, territory was before. So it was just like everything was taken with everything else, but it's like, oh no, that's Vlad from the block. He can have that because it's better for him to have it than somebody else, and we don't got to travel in. And that became my thing. And
snuck right in the front door.
But what people don't know, Sean, even though we looked at it like that, the authorities didn't. So I got arrested 22 different times for cannabis during this process of running that operation. Ended up doing some time up north, and then I had to start looking at things differently because then the internet came out. Then the block thing wasn't as much of a thing, and I had to start opening my lens to think bigger than that. I already was like, had graduated from the block to being a wholesaler too and stuff like that. But then I just felt like things were changing, and I was like, I got to change along with those times. And the big epiphany came when it came to this whole Happy Munkey journey was that I got 3 partners, J.O., my other partner, Ramon. We were all dealing with cannabis, but separately. We all had our separate things, but we were just, close friends for a long time. And we all felt the same way, like there was something else that needed. My partners had a recording studio downtown on 38th Street, 5,000 square feet. It was called 5 Cup Studios. And then my other partner, Ramon, had gone to Amsterdam, Holland, and he had seen that whole cafe consumption thing. And at the time, that was unheard of here. So we were like, you know what? We're already doing this. We have the real estate. He says he's seen this cafe thing. Why don't we throw a party and see what happens? And we just have, instead of alcohol, weed. And that took off. We started doing them once a month, like 200-300 people a night, then once a week, then 7 days a week, 200-300 people a night. In 2019, Forbes called us the Studio 54 of cannabis. Because it wasn't just the people. As you know, Sean, there's very few things left in society. Like in this divided, polarized world, people don't agree on many things anymore. Cannabis is one of the few things that they do. So I feel like cannabis is like this secret scalpel that cuts through all the divisions, race, classes, etc. So since it was located where I told you at in 38th Street, which you know for somebody from the city, it's sort of like a neutral zone where everybody feels safe from no matter what side, race, class you're from. It would be like, we're sitting at a table like this, Sean, and it'll be like, Sean from the Bronx, politician, billionaire, lawyer, gangster, but everybody's has this thing that they all agree on, this peace pipe, and like under no other circumstance would we be together, but wasn't legal at the time, and they all felt like this thing right here, because you use it and I use it and we use it together, like there's some type of bond, the same way that is with food kind of thing. And that's why they called it Studio 54 Cannabis. It wasn't just because of the amount of people, it was like the eclectic mix of people that never gets together. And then from there, there's another friend of mine called International Peace. Shout out to him. He's like a creative and he's like host and actor. He saw all these people's actors, billionaires, like all this. He was like, you gotta get some of this like content. Right. You gotta start a podcast. Right. Or you gotta get interviews. So then remember, it's a recording studio. So
and what year is this? This is all going
2017. Down? The peak was 2019. When
refresh my memory. Is it legal medical use yet or nothing?
It's only medical use with a card. Right. But for the most part, it's legal. You get caught, you get arrested, all that stuff. So that's why this was unheard of. Because before that, there was people doing pop-ups at places like this with like little tables and farmers market style. We made it like, you're gonna understand this, Sean, like, we don't want to go to a farmer's market like the same way we go to a nightclub. That's the way we want to smoke. Right. So it was leather couches, TVs, music.
You knew your audience.
And like what we like.
Right. You knew your audience and you got to do it in an environment that was real to that versus where we would have to go, right? So use marijuana in the hood, you do it doing whatever you're doing. You walk through a project apartment or as soon as you enter the lobby, 9 times out of 10, you're going to smoke weed, right? It's unfortunately that normal. And I say unfortunately because it's done some damage too, but that's on the individual, right? When you talk about bringing everybody together like that, like a peace pipe, like a ritual, a communal ritual around this plant, right? It destigmatizes the whole problem that we had the whole time, which is we're locking people up for having marijuana. 9 times out of 10, they'd really let you out the side door. It was just, all right, we're going to process you. We're going to go start filling out some paperwork. We're going to end our shift and we're going to let you out the side door when it's time to clock out. Granted, you didn't get caught with a significant amount of weed. You're different because you're a dealer. But if I was just a user smoking weed on the street, this would happen to me. The officer didn't want to make the arrest. The guy smoking didn't want to get arrested. So it was just like a broken system. Now we see.
Just to stop you right there, this is very important what you just mentioned, Sean. That was not a broken system because you know what that taught me, being in that room with the people from all sides of the aisle, from all sides of the city. So let's say I'm sitting down with Sean or Josh that lives in West Village or Tribeca, born and raised like me and you in New York. Do you know that this was happening to me? You know that me and Sean were getting arrested and all my people, they're like, that didn't happen to us.
No.
We never got arrested once. So they were targeting our community to make a quota.
Of course.
For whether you were a consumer or a dealer. Right. And they told me, the most they told us was to put it out. So it was not.
And that's the broken system. Because the broken system is the fact that the system is still reliant upon the biases of man and woman. And an arresting officer is going to, or an arresting officer in one of our neighborhoods is going to treat us differently than an officer in Williamsburg, Brooklyn now, or even 10 years ago, definitely now. So my point is, yes, same problem, treated very, very differently. So 2017, we've got legal marijuana in the form of medical. Yes, and my knowledge of that, I think we talked on the phone. I had some people that were high-level entrepreneurs, and they were more than $5 million into applying for those original 5 licenses that the state of New York was going to issue, which I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, then allowed you either 3 or 5 more locations. This was just medical. So even to play that game, the only players in the game were high-level entrepreneurs, people with millions of dollars, access to land to grow the weed, processing facilities. You had to have an infrastructure. And a lot of the guys from California and from Colorado were coming out here to New York to expand their own successful businesses from the West Coast. But now we shift. 2017, when does legal recreational marijuana take a hold?
What happens is it's a crazy transition because it all imbalances with what happens in society too, right? Because all these things all work in conjunction. It's crazy how life works, right, Sean? Like sometimes people believe, like you hear people talk this crazy stuff like the Illuminati and all this stuff, and like this, like everything is so mastered and controlled. And from my experience, everything's just stringing along as it goes along, not as sophisticated. Because as I got into those higher rooms, it's like these people are not smart.
They don't know what they're doing. The fucking politicians, they don't create anything. Listen, I'm not shitting on politicians, right? But I'm shitting on politicians. Listen, politics is necessary, right? We need politics. We need road. Now I see the value of less politics in society because I have affluence. When I didn't have affluence, and many of my friends that still don't, cannot see it that way. And I understand why they wouldn't see it that way. They need help. So they're looking to the government to help them. But we know the government is not there to help you. And to your point, they just figuring the shit out just like anybody else. But without the repercussion of losing money. And that's why they can get away with being fucking piss poor dummies and mismanaging things and never getting in trouble.
So the reason I mentioned that is I'm gonna give you the reason that cannabis got legalized, and it's not what you would think. So first of all, COVID hits 2020.
Yep.
So we were fortunate, right, that remember that seed that my friend planted of starting to create contact, interviewing those people, turned it from an event thing to a lifestyle brand. Because even though cannabis wasn't legal, the plant, the lifestyle is legal. There was nobody before us representing the New York City cannabis lifestyle.
Right.
Because it was what you said, it was all West Coast based. And we know that we're not on surfboards. If you're from affluent, it's suits, they're smoking, wherever. Right. And then the other side is Tim. So we represent a different lifestyle. Right. Nobody before us was representing that lifestyle. Right. So we
all the things that came around.
So we trademarked the cannabis, even though cannabis is legal, we trademarked ourselves as a cannabis lifestyle company, where we're promoting the lifestyle, not the plant, because it's not legal yet. So started with media, then we went into merchandise, then we went into clothing. Thank God, because COVID hits and there's no more gatherings. So we can't have those 200-300 people. So now we're able to keep our fan base alive through the content, through the merch, through the website, through etc. And now, right around that same time, cannabis goes on the bill for legalization. But the reason that it got pushed forward more was at the time Cuomo was in office. And Cuomo got some heat for some things that allegedly he did or he didn't do. Mm-hmm. So he wanted to brush attention away from himself. So he was like,
let's move this bill forward.
It makes perfect sense to you.
Instead of the nursing home deaths and the book and the sexual harassment charges, let's talk about cannabis.
So now, boom, that makes happens. Sense. So now that happens, but still, as you always said, there's always big money at play and influence and relationships and whatever it is. I don't know, but these things are still in place. So there's two bills on the docket, Sean. One is what we have now. The MRTA is the most equitable bill in the country for disenfranchised peoples, minorities, or whatever, because majority of all the states that's legal, it's 95% owned by not people that look like me and you, it's owned by Caucasians and affluent people. So this bill was like the way to like make it about.
Unique to New York State?
Yeah, only in New York. So, but remember, that's one bill that's on the docket. Right. There's another bill called not the MRTA, the CRTA, which was the total opposite. What is the opposite, Sean? Licenses go to the highest bidder.
Right, similar to the medical.
You need, exactly, similar to the medical. You need to have a certain amount of funding. If you have a record, maybe you don't, et cetera, et cetera. So we had this influence and we had because we were doing those events for 2-3 years, we became the de facto place, not just for New York City. You know, New York City, everybody that's doing anything significant in the world, you have to stop in New York City, right? We're downtown 38th. So they would have these conferences, Sean, in the city, like about cannabis, that's happening all over the country and etc. And then we became like the after party. So what that means is Sean is in town from California for this conference. This guy's in town from Germany, whatever, from Cannabis. Oh, before us, they would go to bars afterwards. And then we came in on like, are you in the cannabis industry or in the alcohol industry? And then we became the de facto after party place because we were the only place where you could gather and consume cannabis. So we got a pretty big Rolodex and a pretty big national, international audience during that time. So now, so we have that platform and we have this reach. So, we get word of what's going on. We're like, man, this is a time in history where we have to really step up and, really fight because there's not many people that do. And if we don't say something, we know how things go. So what we did was we got a petition that was pushing for the MRTA. The bill we have now, we got thousands of people to sign it. And then remember, Sean, this is during COVID. Yeah. Everybody is in front of a screen, a computer. So now our reach is stronger than ever because we have everybody captivated. And now we put it online and on social media and we get hundreds of thousands of people from around the country and the world is signing to start pushing it. To the point where Kumo was like, who the F is Happy Munkey? Like what? They're messing up the stuff. You know what I mean?
Right, which is the big donors. The big players on that other proposed bill.
And thank God we got the MRTA passed. And then now that passed, COVID ends, right, Sean? And now, once again, you got to evolve with what's happening. So we're like, now that COVID is done, now cannabis is legal, but there's no stores open yet, but the process is starting. We can't go back to do that because we fall for that. And unless we do things a little more on the up and up, we won't be able to participate in this. So what we do is now, since we already have the following, we have the Rolodex, we start doing compliant events that are sponsored by legal, like those medical cannabis brands in spaces that nobody thought before. So for example, the first 420 after cannabis legalization, like 2021, 2022, we did an event at Bobby's Vance Steakhouse on Wall Street.
Wow.
Across the street from the stock exchange in the basement with consumption. And we had that crowd that we told you, the news came out of NBC, CNBC, right across from the stock exchange. So now we're taking things to another level because of our relationships to who we are. We now have establishments, prestigious ones that are like, well, now this is okay and we're allowing this.
But how many entrepreneurs do we know from the hood that are super talented and we cut corners and we break and bend rules and many of us are punished for it, as you and I both were. And we wise up and then we start to legitimize what we're doing. We start to see that, oh, this isn't the way, but I'm just as talented as all these dumb motherfuckers and there's no reason that they should be here. I try to explain that to people all the time. It's like, if you're coming from where we're coming from, you are no less worthy, but yes, you will be digging yourself out of a deeper hole than somebody that is coming from where I live now. But what you don't realize is digging yourself out of that hole is making you combat ready. It's making you battle tested. It's giving you all the tools you need if you're able to not go down that wrong path too far before it's, before you're not redeemable. And luckily you were. Let's talk about how you were brought up. You say you were brought up by a single mom. Pops
Correct.
Wasn't around.
Correct.
Ditto. What'd your mom do for a living?
My mom, to be honest with you, my mom was like, came up as like the muse, was always like, the Kim Kardashian in the neighborhood and that when hang out with all the salseros with the Willie Colons.
Mom had it, huh?
Exactly. Mom was it. And then at that time,
Mom was stunting.
Mom was stunting. The neighborhood was like the central point. So she got caught up in that lifestyle and then unfortunately got caught up in drugs, cocaine, and etc.
Same shit.
And she just was surviving, like I said, off of coupons and welfare.
What are some of the great lessons that you took from moms?
Some of the great lessons, unfortunately, was that even though I got to be around all kinds of drugs, I never used anything but plant medicine because of what I saw.
You saw it.
Because I saw
Same.
it. no matter what I was around.
That's not true. I just never cocaine. it was just something that I talk about too, is when you see behaviors growing up, you can either embrace them or shun them. And you are like, nah. I seen how that destroyed somebody that I love very much, or chipped away at their potential, not necessarily destroyed, right? And I was like, I'm never gonna let that happen to me. So you learn to stay away from drugs, right? Sometimes the lessons aren't always necessarily taught in a manner where, hey, don't do this. It's, okay, I see what you're doing, let me not do this. Which, you got kids?
Yes, I have a daughter.
So they're not listening to a word you say. Yes, they are, but in the end, they're really gonna repeat what you're doing with your life, not what you're telling them to do with theirs. So mom teaches you to stay away from drugs, ironically enough. Hard drugs. What else can you say you give her credit for?
Then she really taught me morals, principles, and values, because I'm gonna be honest with you, tell you something that was kind of crazy from about my neighborhood, and I think this is gonna make sense to you, Sean. So even though I'm Dominican, I'm an American Dominican.
Right.
The people that were really running the game in my neighborhood were the Dominicans that were from over there.
Right.
And they had a stigma with the ones that were born here. Like, you guys are different. I don't know if you're trustworthy, you guys. You know what I mean? Listen to rap. You guys got different influences. But a big reason why I was more embraced was ese hijo de Marilu. That's Rosa's son, because it's the reputation that she has. So I learned that no matter what, with all her flaws, she had a reputation of morals, principles, and values. And that got passed down to me. And I was even able to get, how I kind of put it, more of an opening and more opportunities because of her integrity and her reputation.
That's awesome, yeah. My mom's, I definitely didn't get called to the streets as much as I could have, and part of it was the respect that people have for my mom. So shout out, as always, every once in a while on the show, we got to shout out single moms. Your mom seems amazing too. I love the fact that you said she was the Kim Kardashian of the hood. And listen, that's about as honest and real as it gets. But I would imagine you were also exposed to a lot of hustlers, a lot of business savvy people, a lot of nightlife people. You starting to see the pattern? She's responsible for why you are where you are, good, bad, or otherwise. So tell us more about Happy Munkey, your locations, what you're planning to do as far as expansion, expanding the brand beyond just the plant, and what the future looks like for you and the team.
Well, right now, our flagship is at Uptown on 151 Dykeman. And that one, and I know this is gonna make sense to you, Sean, was like a real testament to me and my partners. What do I mean by that? Me and you know that everybody talks the talk when it comes to our neighborhood should be like this, and I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna do that. But it's a different story, Sean, when you get put with an opportunity and a budget and saying you can be anywhere in Manhattan and you have the budget to be anywhere in Manhattan. You're gonna choose your community, or you're gonna go to 34th Street,
money.
Times Square, 72nd Street. And that was a crossroads we had where it was you know what? Yeah, there might be more money short-term there, but this is more of a legacy, long-term, and an impactful thing that we're gonna do, because what we see constantly, Sean, is I was talking with somebody that's about the other day. People are like, oh, they're gentrifying the neighborhood. They're doing this, they're doing that. But me and you know, the majority of people, when that opportunity comes that me and you're talking about, they don't come back and invest in the community. So how are you gonna get mad when somebody else does?
Right.
So
and it's gonna change. It's gonna change anyway. Are you changing with it, or are you staying the same and everything else around you is changing? And unfortunately, it's the latter. The neighborhood changes. It doesn't look the same as it did 30 years ago. It's not gonna look the same in 20 years, and so on and so on. But if you're still in that neighborhood and you still got the same viewpoint and you're still doing the same shit, is that on the world or is that on you? And you are faced now with, do I go for the big money opportunity or do I keep it real? And you decided on the latter, to stay in the hood, stay where you grew up, where your roots were at. And this was in what year, 2022?
when we opened the
shop, yeah.
Oh, no, the shop was,
no, that was recently.
That was recent. We're about to have our 1-year anniversary soon. It's just been a year.
That's right.
But that was so significant because it's the first one in history above 125th Street. You know what I mean? So it was like historic in that way. And then give you the domino effect that it has, Sean. I want to know your opinion. So now the kid on the corner that's selling dimes, 20s, and 8s is like, Vlad used to be on the corner. Look what he did. It's possible for me. I have done like 3 presentations at senior centers for about the medicinal benefits of cannabis. I went to the aging committee for the community board. There's a presentation to them. And now we have all these doñas and señores coming in instead of getting pharmaceuticals, because not only did you need the information to get to them, Sean, but you needed somebody that has the cultural competency to explain it to them in English or Spanish. So I'm giving you the domino effects on top of the money. And then the truth is that what I remember, I started with the story that's where I got my first ounce 27 years ago. So the truth is that I remember when I made this decision, even people that are like me and you're wasting your brand, Sean. Those people don't have no money. And I told them, see, that's the problem to you. Those are those people. Those are my people.
Right.
And there is money up there because that's why I started my career up. It's just that you don't see it because it's not on your projections and you can't Google it because you don't understand the community. But I do, and I'm going to prove you wrong.
We operate black market.
You want to hear the irony of that? Some of those same people own dispensaries right now, Sean, and they come to mine. And I don't have security, and you go to theirs, and they have security. I'm like, I thought you said it was dangerous here with those people. I said, those are my people. And you are in a more affluent area, and you need security because those are not your people. Those are really those people.
Right. Well, it's misconception, right? I'm going to say something that you speak so well. You present well. You're Latino, but you could pass for black. You speak eloquently. Yeah, you're not supposed to look and talk like this because somebody's already coming to the table with a fucking explanation because they know you because of some fucking video or some TV show or some hip hop song or some fucking Aventura, Bad Bunny. I don't know. I know the culture because I know an artist is my point. But then you come out.
Whatever stereotype.
You just change the game because once you get in front of that audience, you have opened their eyes, you have their ears, you have their attention. What are some of the things you're doing in advocacy around the city and beyond to push that message?
So that's a great segue that you mentioned. So aside from everything that you mentioned, I am a public speaker. So I have spoken, Sean, in every cannabis conference in the United States of America, Mexico, UK, Spain. And what I get to do now is, because I gave you the lens of the local community, the way that I'm changing the hearts and the minds. Now, when I get on these stages, like you said, who is there? The other people, if there's a panel, I'm not talking alone, it's the guys that own the medical stuff, the lawyers, the growers, and etc., right? The guy that used to work for CPG company, the guy that came from Pepsi, and etc., right? But now I get to sit next to them and I say, well, your degrees are amazing, Mr. So-and-so, and your experience is amazing and all those things that you did, but you're not more of an expert than me on this subject because I've been doing this for 27 years from legacy to legal, and I know more than you about this because you only know what you can look up on a computer. I know everything you know, plus what I learned for the first 20 years that you can't look up in a book or Google, and this. So now you have to start looking the next time you see somebody that looks like me or comes from differently because we're not just a charity case. I might be better than you at this.
Let's speak on that. So it's on you, the individual, to present in a manner that is on the level of your peers. It's on them as human beings to see us as such as well, in a perfect world, right? What do you say to Latinos and African Americans that are caught up on the fact that things are unfair, that inequity is what it is, right? We know that the rules of the game are the rules. But what information, how can you encourage them? How can you, obviously by sharing your story, but what gems can you drop on them to let them know right now that you are worthy, but you got to do the fucking work?
1,000%. One thing that I learned is that you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And the biggest three things that have changed things for me that I always recommend for people, and it sounds so simple, and I know you heard it before when you were away in the university with me.
Simple works, baby.
People, places, and things. If you go to the same places, you hang with the same people, and you do the same things, you'll get the different results. You'll be surprised just going around different circles and different networks, how much people will embrace you and how much you can learn from them and they can learn from you. But you gotta get outside of your bubble.
Yeah.
And the more you do that, the more you will accumulate new information and people will be more intrigued with what you have, because whether you believe it or not, as you said, your story, your value is something that they don't understand and they need to, but you have to put yourself out there. So the number one thing I always tell people is the first thing is people, places, and things. And then make sure, as your podcast is called, whatever industry, whatever you're looking to do, they say the closer you are to the sun, the more light you get. So you go and you find somebody that is where you want to be or that does, and you get closer to that and you get more light and you get more knowledge and you absorb that. And before you know it, you could become your own star and your own sun.
Quick question. This one comes from my director, Flow Genius. Let's say cannabis were to go defunct, right? Because you're adding value with the Happy Munkey lifestyle brand. Let's say fucking cannabis became Schedule A again, totally illegal. What parts of the brand could you preserve and actually strive with? Well, the first one, remember, we started with is events. We've done some of the biggest events. We didn't get into that, but I'll just give you some examples. One of our biggest events, I don't know if you remember at the time, there was the Van Gogh immersive experience going on all over the country. We did a collaboration with them in the city at Pier 36. It was the first big ever above board public cannabis event. What does that mean? Tickets sold on Ticketmaster for $150, $200 a ticket. And we sold out one night, 1,000 people. And the next night, it was Van Gogh Immersive after dark. Second night, 1,500 people. One of the events was an all-white party. We had an all-white cannabis party. Came out on New York Times, Bloomberg, NASDAQ. Wow.
Forbes, etc. Remember, I started by saying I got in the loop of what was going on the legal cannabis side was because I went to a conference in 2018 around there, Sean. So this is how it went. As usual, they weren't happening in Sobro. They weren't happening.
Right.
They were happening in Tribeca. And it was like $200-300 a ticket. But if a Jewish friend of mine says, Vlad, you should come to this cannabis conference thing. I say, cannabis conference, that sounds great. I want to check it out. So I'm like, I'm going to find Spanish, Black, Jamaican, hippies. I see people with suits on. I'm like, what's going on here, Sean? Guy sitting next to me, somebody speaking on stage. He says, you see that company? They're not doing good. I said, how do you know? He said, their stocks. I said, their stocks? I said, hold the phone.
Where am I?
That's where I was like, hold up. Oh, we're not going to get left out of this. This is what we've been doing. And then from the whole story is fast forward. The other thing we did after legalization was all those events were happening in the flu areas like Williamsburg, Tribeca, etc. We were like, we have to change that because, as you know, Sean, I used to think that the biggest issues that our community and our people had was lack of finance, is lack of information, because the information doesn't always make it to our communities as much as we like. So what we did was we collabed with the local community board from Sugar Hill, Sean Abreu. We got access to a Columbia University space. We did what we called the Happy Munkey Symposium. We got Adriano Espaillat, congressman, to do opening statements. We flew in a doctor that specializes in the endocannabinoid system. We got the Manhattan Borough president to speak. And we had the cannabis czar. We gave all this for free with translation services. We just got sponsors to prove that we could bring this to our community and those other people don't have to charge $500, $600, $700. And the only way we change things is by bringing this information. So I believe the events and the education.
Absolutely. And knowledge without action is just wasted knowledge. So I'm glad you took action on that for sure. So you mentioned the nightlife being the one thing that could survive. Now, obviously the whole idea of cannabis, nightlife, celebrities, the news coming, white parties, sounds sexy. But what most people don't realize in an entrepreneurial journey is you're going to make sacrifices in other areas to make the success possible. What are some of the things maybe you sacrificed along the way to getting to this point that you now have to work on to kind of bring up to speed?
The truth is, one of the biggest things was like, you got to remember, like I was living off of this on the illicit world and I was doing really, really well for myself. And to take this journey without knowing what to give all that up, put myself in a situation where I don't know where my finances will come from in the future. Because remember, during that time, I'm telling you, COVID, or don't know what's going to happen, how things going to end up. And to have that blind faith, like, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to risk it all and go down this path. And to give up the easy money that I was making and to go down this path. And then, as you know, as an entrepreneur, Sean, to also go through and be like, well, yeah, you know, you can raise money, you can do this, but everybody will get paid, and we'll see maybe if you get paid, if things work out, and you might end up with a bunch of debt and you might end up with nothing. And, you know, this is you're the CEO, you want to, you know, you get paid last if things work out. Right. If not, you just end up with a bunch of debt.
Sounds great. Let's do it. It takes balls. That's the bottom line.
Nobody understands.
Yeah, for sure. There's so many things that we could talk about, but I want to end it there. And I think we're going to do this dance again on location because I know people, and we'll definitely swing something together.
And we got a lounge there for you with amazing setup. You
got so much value in what you're doing. And just for the record, you don't have college, right?
No, I dropped out of high school in 9th grade.
And you've done all this on sheer desire, willpower, obviously intelligence and wisdom and knowledge. What are some of the things that you can share maybe that still hold you back, that you're aware of, but you're trying to shed so that you can take not only yourself, but your brand and this mission you're on to another level?
Well, you know, I'm going to be honest with you. I'll be vulnerable with you. Sometimes, you know, we get imposter syndrome and we feel like, you know, we make it to these levels and you question yourself because of where we came from and because of not the education and because we didn't grow up in these zip codes. And that's a constant battle that we belong everywhere. We're citizens of the world. And there's no, my philosophy is to battle that, is that every room I walk into, I'm not better than anybody and nobody's better than me. So it helps me not look up to anybody or look down to anybody. And that's how I balance that battle that I deal with.
Amen. Let the audience know, if you don't mind, how we can find out more about Vlad, Happy Munkey, the brand, and where you're going, and anything else you want to let them know about.
So look up Vladimir Bautista 123 on IG, Vladimir Bautista, LinkedIn, all the social medias. Then Happy Munkey, monkey with a U.com. We'll give you everything, and same thing on all the rest of the sites. And for everybody out there, remember, you're too blessed to be stressed. Things to get greater later. Just gotta always choose happy.
My brother, I just want to thank you for coming out today in this disgusting weather, making it happen. As always, we want to thank you for tuning in. Find out more information about Happy Munkey or Vlad if you're in the New York City area and beyond, because we got you online as well. So go out and support. As always, let's get it, make it a great one, and keep tuning in.